Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, June 24th edition of the MMAOB Daily Show. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin. Going to be taking you through the latest in the world of mixed martial arts and also the world of bare knuckle fighting. So we'll have a lot to talk about today, guys. I hope you had a great weekend. There was a lot of combat sports to take in, so hopefully everyone survived. First and foremost, guys, follow me on Twitter at MMAdamMartin. Always there to talk about MMA. This podcast is available at MMAOddsbreaker.com. Please go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, share, like, everything like that. I appreciate it. Also check me out at SureDog.com, MMAnews.com, MMAratings.net, and BJPenn.com, where I am pleased to announce that I have taken on a bigger role there starting in July. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you to the team at BJPenn.com for believing in me and giving me a bigger role at the site. I love working there. But I love working for MMAOddsbreaker.com. That's my home. That's been my home since 2012, guys. So that's where this podcast is. That's where we talk shop about fights all the time, break down fights, recap fights. And let's get right into it right now. So today's going to be actually a jam-packed show. I have a lot to talk about today. I'm going to be recapping UFC Greenville, Bellator London / Bellator 223, and also bare knuckle fighting 6. So I have a lot to talk about today, guys. No hesitation. Let's get right into it. Let's start with UFC Greenville. This was a card that not many people were giving much attention to. Not many big names on the card. Main event between Korean Zombie and Renato Moicano, probably the biggest names on the card, but still not huge names. Guys that are ranked, but barely ranked. So it was a card that was flying under the radar. But like I said last week on the podcast, me and Cole Sheldon did the preview show. I said, there's some good matchmaking in this card. And the card turned out to be literally one of the best cards of the year, if not like the best fighting card of the year. Fantastic card. Great matchmaking, great fights from bottom to top. Awesome night of fights. I mean, I don't think you could ask for anything more as a fan. Let's get right into it. Main event of the evening, Korean Zombie Chan Sung-jung knocks out Renato Moicano 58 seconds into the first round. And I should mention I did the play-by-play for SureDog.com, so go and check that out if you missed any of the fights. I recapped all the action there as well. This was a crazy knockout. I mean, he caught him with an overhand right, Jung did, and dropped him and then finished him off the ground and pound. It's a huge knockout win for Jung. He's 32 years old, but I mean, he took so much time off that it's like he's kind of weird. He's kind of a funny fighter. Like you'd think that he'd be so old in fight years because he's been knocked out a bunch of times, been in so many wars, but the guy's still fighting at such a high clip. So even though he's 32 by age, I feel like he's a little bit younger in some respects. This was an amazing knockout for him. He needed this win. You know, since coming back to the UFC in 2017, 2-1 with 2 knockout wins over Dennis Bermudez and Renato Moicano, and the 1 knockout loss to Yair Rodriguez. That happens. He was actually going to win that fight. Got knocked out 4:59 in the 5th round. Probably one of the craziest knockouts of all time in MMA history. So that will happen. And as you can hear, my dogs are very excited about the Korean Zombie's return. So am I. This guy's awesome. You know, he got 7 fights in the UFC now. And he has 7 performance of the night bonuses, fight of the night, performance of the night, knockout of the night, submission of the night, all that stuff. That's crazy. So this guy's always guaranteed violence and guaranteed excitement. As I wrote on MMAratings.net, you can go check that article. I just tweeted about it. Korean Zombie is the perfect guy to headline a fight night card. He really is, because he's not a big enough name where you can put him on pay-per-view. He's not a big enough draw to put him on pay-per-view. But he's someone that hardcore fans love to tune into to watch. And he's someone that casual fans also love to tune into to watch. So to me, he's the perfect guy to headline these fight night cards. If you look at his resume, his last 5 fights have been headliners, including 1 pay-per-view against Jose Aldo, UFC 163. That's the fight where he blew his shoulder out. But other than that, he's been main eventing these fight night cards, and they've been doing well. So the UFC has, I wouldn't say a star per se on their hands, but they have someone they can rely on for these fight night main events. The guy's fantastic. He's an amazing fighter. I love watching a fight. I counted him out a little bit here just because of that last knockout. I did pick Moicano, but I'm happy to see Korean Zombie get that win. Great fight. And like I said, that prop on the fight not going the distance, that ended up closing at like minus 190 or something. Like, that's crazy to me. There was no way this fight was going the distance, not between these two guys. And Korean Zombie, he hasn't fought to a decision since 2010 against Leonard Garcia. I don't see him maybe ever fighting a decision again. I just don't see that. With that style, I don't see him fighting a decision ever. So that was a good prop for someone to bet on. I think it was more like less risky than either guy, but I know a lot of people did pick Korean Zombie here, so good for you guys if you picked him. And another main event upset. We've seen so many upsets in main events in the UFC this year. It's crazy, right? And for some reason, I keep picking the favorites and I keep losing. So it is what it is. I know I'm not the only one picking these favorites like Moicano, like Gustafsson, etc. Who else? Quinter, a bunch of guys. Stephen Thompson. There's been so many upsets in the UFC certain main events. So it is what it is. It's been a crazy year for that. And Korean Zombie continues that trend. Great win for Korean Zombie. What's next for him? A top 10 opponent, no doubt about it. Immediately after the fight, go check BJPenn.com. I wrote the article. Jeremy Stevens called him out. Yes, Jeremy Stevens is coming off 2 straight losses. That is true. But who wouldn't want to see Jeremy Stevenson's Korean Zombie? I would love to see that fight. It makes a lot of sense in my opinion. So we'll see what happens there. But if not Jeremy to beat Magomed Sharapov, Brian Ortega, someone like that. That fight was supposed to happen, by the way, at UFC 240. I know it was reported, I believe, by Nolan King a few months ago. I was just looking at the card this morning for Edmonton. I don't see that fight anywhere listed. So I'm not sure what happened in that fight. And also Brian Ortega is tweeting about fighting in Mexico now. So, hey, I'd watch Ortega versus Korean Zombie. That'd be a sick fight. As a main event in Mexico, great fight. So we'll see what happens. But he's in a good spot. And for Moicano, that's back-to-back knockout losses now against Aldo and Jung. I still think he's a really good fighter, but clearly he has some chin issues, and also he has some striking defense issues. He's been caught with some big punches and getting KO'd. So I like watching him fight, but I mean, he's got to really pick it up in his next fight. He's got to get a win. All right, what else on this card? Good card, like I said. Co-main event, another fight that had an upset here. Randy Brown knocking out Brian Barbary in the third round. And I'm not totally shocked by this. Brian Barbary is a pretty good fighter, pretty durable, but that fight with Vicente Luque, I mean, everyone was like, oh yeah, he should have won the fight. He should have beat a great fighter than Luque, but he lost, and he lost by brutal knockout in the third round. And it was a fight where he took a ton of damage. So that was actually a quick turnaround, only like 3 or 4 months coming back to this fight against Randy Brown. Ends up losing by knockout in the third round. It was a close fight heading into the third, 1-1. That's how the judges saw it. But Randy Brown, he really picked it up in the third round and got the brutal knockout, knees, and then a body punch. So great knockout by Randy Brown. It's a knockout he needed coming off that disappointing loss to Nico Price last year where he got knocked out. It was a weird knockout. You go back and watch that one if you haven't seen that. He needed this win. He's a pretty solid fighter. You know, he's only 28, so he's still young. He still has a lot of potential, I think, a lot of athleticism. This was a good win for him. Probably the biggest win of his career. I mean, it definitely was the biggest win of his career. So good for him. And this wasn't the best co-main event of the year, obviously, just on paper, but it turned out to be a decent fight. So good for Randy Brown getting the upset win. Next up, bantamweight bout. Andre Ewell wins the decision over Anderson dos Santos. Another great fight. This was an awesome fight. Andre Ewell, I believe, won the first 2 rounds, but Anderson dos Santos really came on strong in that third round. And I have to credit this guy. He was down 2 rounds to none. His coaches told him he was. He knew he was. And he went for the kill, and I love seeing that. I don't like when guys are down or girls are down 2 rounds to none, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, and they don't do anything in the third round. They just stand there and they try to win a decision, but they're already down 2 rounds. This guy was trying to finish the fight, so I respect that about him. It was a good fight. Andre Ewell gets the win. Not his biggest win ever. He beat Renan Barao previously, but still a good win. The fight was elevated to the main card, so they got more attention than it would have compared on the prelims, which I will talk about in a second. But good for Andre Ewell, and for dos Santos, he'll get another fight in the UFC, especially after this fight. I mean, it was a great fight. Next up, Andrea Lee beats Matana De La Rosa by unanimous decision. This fight wasn't as great, I guess. I picked De La Rosa. I was completely wrong with this one, obviously. Lee dominated the fight for the most part. Montana De La Rosa did get a couple takedowns, but I think Lee showed in this fight that she is the prospect to watch out for at 125. I thought there was some value on Montana De La Rosa. It is what it is. I mean, she got beaten in this fight. I still think she's a pretty good fighter, but clearly was exposed here. If she can't get the takedown, she's in trouble. Andrea Lee outstruck her. She stopped most of the takedowns here and evaded any submission attempts. So big win for Andrea Lee. She's on a big win streak now. Let me check how many wins in a row. 7-fight win streak. So she might be closing in on a title shot. I don't know if she gets it next. I guess Liz Carmouche is getting it next. Kaylin Chukagin maybe could be in the next fight for Andrea Lee here. I guess that would make sense as a number one contenders fight. But it was a good performance by her. I'm still not convinced she beats Valentina Shevchenko, but in a shallow division, she's one of the top contenders. Good win for Andrea Lee. Next up, Kevin Holland beats Alessio Di Chirico by unanimous decision. Of all the fights in this card, this one kind of was slowed the pace down, I think. Kevin Holland wins. What was kind of a contentious decision. I personally did score for Kevin Holland, but I know most people scored it for Di Chirico. The 3 judges, though, did have Kevin Holland 29-28. So he gets the win by unanimous decision. I think it's just a situation where Di Chirico didn't do enough to win. And Kevin Holland had a busted shoulder. Like, his team literally had to put his shoulder back in the socket between the second and third rounds. It popped out. So the fact that Di Chirico couldn't finish a guy or even beat a guy that was fighting with one arm, basically, that's kind of sad. So it is what it is. But, if you see your opponent hurt like that, your team's got to pick up on it. You got to go knock the guy out, or at least, again, remember the Korean Zombie against Jose Aldo. Remember what happened when he popped his shoulder out? Aldo went for the kill. So you didn't see that with Di Chirico here. Maybe he should have won the fight. I don't know. I thought Holland won, but it was a close fight. And I don't think it's kind of the fight that's worth arguing about because it wasn't a great fight. And it's not like, these guys are relevant for a title shot by any means. So good for Kevin Holland to get the win, but yeah, not a great fight. Next up, Dan Ige beats Kevin Aguilar by decision. Really good fight again. Ige pulls off a mini upset here. I believe he was like plus 120, so good for him pulling off the upset against Kevin Aguilar. It was a close fight again, 1-1 heading into the third, and Ige pulled away, and he landed a big overhand right, I think, on Aguilar, dropped him, and just really dominated him in that third round. So huge win for Dan Ige. This guy's a really good fighter. You know, I keep writing him off, not writing him off, but just kind of counting him out. Even in this fight, he's on a 4-fight win streak now, though, so he's really good. Kevin Aguilar, I mean, that's a disappointing loss. He was on a nice win streak, long win streak, and loses. So someone had to lose. I mean, it's MMA, right? Someone wins, someone loses. In this case, Kevin Aguilar lost. It happens. But definitely a solid fight for both guys. I think in general, it was a good matchup. Next up, this is probably one of the biggest beatdowns on the card. Ashley Yoder beats Yuri Kondo by unanimous decision, 30-26, 30-25, 30-24. I think they scored at 30-25, I believe. I got to go back and check, but it was a beatdown. It's surprising how small of a favorite Yoder was. I mean, to me, there was a clear advantage here for her in the grappling department. She won the fight. Great win for Ashley Yoder. She needed this. Now she's 2-3 in the UFC. Good win for her. I mean, it would have been nice for her to get the finish because she dominated the fight, but Kondo proved to be pretty tough, and she evaded a lot of submission attempts, but was still beaten down for the majority of 3 rounds. Good for Ashley Yoder for getting the win. And speaking of beatdowns, what about Luis Pena destroying Matt Wyman? I mean, this was an absolute beatdown. Poor Matt Wyman, man. Comes back after 5 years and fights a guy in Pena who just looked like an absolute beast in this fight. Luis Pena, only 25 years old. He's now 3-1 in the UFC. The guy's really good. You know, I think I was a little sour on him the last couple fights, especially at featherweight, but he looked amazing in this fight, and he's still huge for that division. I don't even know how he made 145. I guess he didn't make it. He made like 148 or something, but you know, this was a huge win for him against a guy who's a longtime veteran of the sport, a well-respected veteran. It was a beatdown. Even though Matt Wyman's coming off a 5-year layoff, I should say, this was still a great win for Luis Pena. As far as the name goes, biggest win of his career. And the way he dominated the fight, he took Wyman down, beat him up on the ground, beat him to a pulp, you know. And credit to Matt Wyman. I mean, he got a nasty cut in the first minute of the fight and told the doctors, I want to fight. The doctors let him go. He fought till the third round, but unfortunately, you know, he just didn't do enough. The referee had to step in and stop the fight. I think it probably could have been stopped a bit sooner, if anything, maybe in the second round. But, you know, credit to him for sticking it out. Tough dude for sure, but Pena looked incredible in this fight. A massive, massive win for Luis Pena, handing Matt Wyman the knockout loss and possibly sending Matt Wyman back to retirement. I just don't see why he'd fight again. Maybe he wants to fight again. Maybe he thinks with the layoff there was some rust here or something. I don't know. But after a fight like that, I don't know if it's a smart idea for him to fight. But we'll see. I have to criticize his management here. I don't know if he's his own manager or who his manager is, but come on. Like 5 years away, you're going to fight a guy like Pena who's 25 years old, who's huge for that division. Come on. There's got to be a better, more favorable matchup out there against the guy, who, you know, an older guy coming off a layoff himself. This was a bad matchup, and you got to question the guy's management because they put him in a bad situation here. Next up, one of the fastest knockouts in UFC history, Jairzinho Rozenstruik knocks out Alan Crowder only 9 seconds. You know, Crowder is just not a great fighter. I think he'll be cut from the UFC after this. He's just not the kind of guy you need in the octagon. He's just not good enough for the UFC, to be quite frank. And Rozenstruik's a beast. I mean, a couple of knockout wins now. The guy knocks out everyone for the most part. 9 seconds, that's the second fastest knockout in UFC history. I believe Bang Ludwig and Jonathan Goulet was the fastest, or Korean Zombie Mark Hominick, one of those two, or maybe they're tied. But either way, one of the fastest ever. And as far as heavyweights go, it might have been the fastest. So massive win for Rozenstruik. Back-to-back wins over Albini and Crowder, beating the lower tier guys in that division, but still knocking them out in brutal fashion. So good for him. Next up, Molly McCann pulls off the upset against Ariane Lipsky. Biggest underdog on the card to cash, plus 215. I know my boy Kyle Marley picked her as a dog. Good for you, Kyle. I know a couple other people were picking her. I picked Lipsky. I regret it. Lipsky is just not good enough for the UFC. Very limited fighter. Only has striking skills. Has absolutely no ground game. Has absolutely no takedown defense. Got taken down at the end of all the rounds in this fight. Molly McCann. It was a close fight until like the last couple minutes of each round. Then Molly McCann just turned it on. And I got to criticize Lipsky's corner here. You know, she's down 2 rounds to none. It doesn't go for the finish. It doesn't really make sense. Like, what are you thinking? You know, I think she's going to get caught. I don't see why the UFC would keep her around. She's shown nothing in her 2 fights to make me think she's a UFC caliber fighter. Yeah, and you know, a lot of people are speculating, hey, maybe she was using some stuff over in KSW. Maybe she was using some PEDs. I don't know. I can't say for sure. All I know is that she hasn't performed in the UFC. And if I'm a matchmaker, if I'm Sean Shelby, I'm wondering to myself, is she worth keeping her on the roster? Because she's shown nothing to show that she's a UFC caliber fighter. So I think she'll probably be released, head back to KSW, get some more wins. Maybe she'll be back, but very, very, very disappointing performance by Ariane Lipski. And good for Molly McCann picking up another win here. She's an underrated fighter for sure. And finally, opening up the main card, or excuse me, the preliminary card. I mean, this could have opened up the main card. This was an amazing fight. Deron wins a unanimous decision over Eric Spicely, 29-28, all three scorecards. Amazing fight. I'm so glad I won fight of the night because a lot of times there's a great fight at the beginning of the night and people forget about it, and the matchmakers, Dana White, forget about it. Dana White even had an Instagram message or a Facebook message or a Twitter message, something like that. He blocked me on Twitter, so I don't see that stuff, but he had some sort of message talking about the fight, saying that it was an amazing fight. And I'm glad I won fight of the night. Both guys deserved it. I did see Eric Spicely say that he was negative in his bank account, so he needed this money bad. An amazing fight, slugfest. Deron went. He's so small for that division, but the guy's got a lot of heart, and he kept pushing forward, which I like to see. He was just pushing forward, throwing strikes. He landed the most significant strikes in a 3-round bout in middleweight history. Amazing performance, and for Eric Spicely, a great performance too. This is a guy who's been criticized for his lack of a chin, lack of his body being able to take strikes, and managed to make it the full 3 rounds. So even though Eric Spicely lost this fight, I do think his stock actually went up. And there's no way, if I'm the UFC, I'm cutting this guy after this fight. He deserves another chance to fight in the UFC. He's a decent fighter. He's shown that in the past. Inconsistent, but still decent. But for Deron Winn, a huge win for him. I really like watching this guy fight. I mean, the comparisons to DC are there because he's his teammate, but to me, he's a different fighter, and he's just a little beast. I like this guy a lot, and I'm looking forward to seeing his next fight. Just a very exciting fighter, really good striking skills, and he has the wrestling to stop takedowns, so he could maybe go decently far. But again, at 5'7", at some point, he's going to fight some guy who's 6'3" with a lot of skill and probably lose. So it happens, but for now, an amazing fight. And again, really happy both these guys won fight of the night. And the performance of the night bonuses, I should say quickly, went to the Korean Zombie, of course, and Rosino Rosenstruck with that quick knockout. So I think the UFC probably got those all right. Overall, great card, 9 out of 10, great card. The Holland fight kind of slowed it down a bit, but overall, just a fantastic card, and I really enjoyed covering this one. It's always fun when the fights are exciting and they're high paced. I enjoy typing that stuff, even though it's a lot of work. It's still a lot of fun to watch. So great card, but that wasn't the only MMA card on Saturday. There was also a Bellator card. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to catch most of this one. Caught some of it. That's just because I was covering the UFC, but also because Bellator made it very difficult, I think, for fans to watch this card. Different streaming methods, different television channels it was on. Very strange. Wouldn't it be easy just to have everything on the same channel? I don't know. But Bellator, they've been criticized about this in the past. They don't seem to want to fix it. I don't know what the issue was, but it was hard for the fans to watch this fight, and fans were confused where to watch the fight. So that's not a good thing, and Bellator needs to fix that. But I do want to talk about this card because a lot of significant things happened, including an upset in the main event as Rafael Lovato Jr. wins a majority decision over Gegard Mousasi, 47-47, 48-47, 48-47. So good for Lovato Jr. I was saying on the podcast last week, Cole, I wouldn't bet on Gegard at that odds. I think he was like minus 600 when we talked about it. He ended up closing at minus 400. With Lovato Jr. cashing as a plus 325 dog. But a lot of people were just writing Lovato Jr. off. And I think, from what I've seen in his career, the guy's really good. So he didn't have much MMA experience. The guy's definitely a good fighter. He's 36. He's a bit older, but 10-0 now. And he just beat Gegard Mousasi. That's a huge win. Gegard snapped a huge win streak for him. I mean, he deserved to be favored. Don't get me wrong. He deserved to be a big favorite here. But at some point, you got to wonder, is it worth betting on a guy at these odds? I don't know. Against an undefeated guy like Lovato Jr. with a huge ground game that want him to fight. His takedowns were relentless in this fight. Like I said, snapped Mousasi's 8-fight win streak. So huge win for Lovato Jr. Will a rematch happen? I think it could happen. I mean, it was a majority decision. It was a close fight, but maybe Bellator goes in another direction. I'm not sure. For Mousasi, it's like, I don't know if he took Lovato Jr. lightly or if Lovato Jr. is that good. I'd like to see a rematch personally. But we'll see what happens. Good for Lovato Jr. though, man. What a huge win for him. Picking up an upset that not many people saw coming. So good for him. A couple other fights here to talk about. Melvin Manhoff beats Kent Coppinen by unanimous decision. I thought Coppinen had a good chance actually to knock out Manhoff in this fight. Was wrong obviously there, but good for Manhoff to get the win. But he's really old. He's in his 40s. What is he? 43 years old. I don't have much faith in this guy going forward. Gets a win here, but I don't know. I'm not too high on Melvin Manhoff at this point. Aaron Chalmers beats Fred Freeman by triangle choke in a setup fight, 160-pound catchweight. Another catchweight by Bellator. Weird. Welterweight bout on the prelims. Paul Daly beats Eric Silva unanimous decision. Good for Paul Daly. I mean, I think most people predicted this would happen here. Eric Silva is just not the same fighter he used to be. He's lost, he's 2-6 in his last 8 fights. Just not the same guy he once was. It's sad to say because I remember when he came to the UFC, man, he had so much potential. I remember that fight with Luis Ramos, knocks him out in 40 seconds. The Carlo Prater fight, which was a robbery there by Mario Yamasaki. Then beats Charlie Brenneman. Then he loses John Fitch. And then just win-loss. So just kind of a bad career he's had. It's unfortunate because he had so much potential at the beginning of his career, but it is what it is. Paul Daly, big win, snaps his 2-fight losing streak, excuse me. Next up, James Gallagher beats Jeremy Laviano in a catchweight fight at 140 pounds. 29-28, so a closer fight on 29-28, all 3 scorecards, I should say. Closer fight for sure, closer than the betting line suggested, but Gallagher, he has some holes in his game. He's got to fix for sure. Again, not sure why this was a catchweight fight. Don't see the point in those catchweight fights, but I'm not the Bellator matchmakers. Fabian Edwards picks up another win over Jonathan Pasuko. Doesn't get the finish, but still sweeps the cards 30-27. Guy's really good. I enjoy watching a fight. As Cole even mentioned on the podcast last week, it's kind of surprising UFC didn't sign him after they signed Leon, his brother, who's an amazing fighter in the UFC. But Fabian's great signing for Bellator. He looks like a great prospect. I'm very intrigued by him going forward. Costello Vanstinas, another good prospect, beats Mike Shipman by knockout. That's a huge win for this guy. Very, very good fighter. Back-to-back wins over Chris Honeycutt and Mike Shipman now 4-0 in Bellator. I think the guy's damn good, so I'm looking forward to seeing what's up for him next. He's definitely a good fighter. And then Charlie Ward beats Jetson Moore by knockout. Charlie Ward gets another favorable matchup, wins by knockout. There were some other fights in the prelims. What's worth mentioning here? Oliver Enkamp, that was a dark match. Former UFC fighter comes in here, beats Walter Gazada, don't know him too well, by submission. Good for him. And then Terry Brazier beats Alessandro Botti by Americano. So good for Terry Brazier. I was pretty high on this guy and in the past, and good for him to get the win. And also Galor Bafano picked up a win as well. So those are kind of some of the notable guys. From what I saw, it was okay card, but again, very difficult to watch, and that's not good for the fans. Bellator's not doing themselves any favors. They're still a clear second behind the UFC in the MMA pecking world. And, they put a lot of money into Gegard Mousasi. To see him lose like this, I'm sure Bellator is very disappointed in that fight, in the outcome of the fight. But it is what it is. Lovato Jr. is a great fighter. And I think that was the story of the card. Rafael Lovato Jr. picking up a big upset win over Gegard Mousasi and becoming the new Bellator middleweight champion. And again, like I said earlier, we'll see what's next. But I do think a rematch could possibly be in the works. Okay, so I've covered UFC Greenville and I've covered Bellator 223/Bellator London. One more card to cover here. It's not MMA, but I still want to cover here. Bare Knuckle Fighting 6. I'll be honest, this was the first time I've watched almost a full card of this. I've checked out, bits and pieces here and there. I'm not totally on the hype train for the bare knuckle thing, especially after this card. I'm not totally sold on it. I'll talk about it in a second, but I do want to mention this because most people in the MMA community that I saw were watching this card, so I want to check it out, especially because the main event between Paulie Malignaggi and Artem Lobov got a lot of hype, a lot of play heading into the card. Artem Lobov pulls off the upset, 5-round unanimous decision win, 2-minute round, so only 10-minute fight. 48-47. He lost the first 2 rounds and won the last 3. So good for Artem to pull off the upset in a grudge match. But for someone like myself, who's an MMA fan, who covers MMA, and who's kind of checking out the bare knuckle thing for the first time, this isn't the kind of fight they want you to go back and watch or to purchase their shows. Not a great fight, and I know fans were not happy with the performances of both guys. It wasn't that exciting of a fight. Artem wins the fight, good for him. But again, not the kind of fight that I think people are going to be hyped and tune in and want to tune into the next bare knuckle. I know their next main event's Jason Knight versus Leonard Garcia. That should be a fun fight, but I'm just not totally sold on this bare knuckle thing. I don't know. It's just, there's something missing here for me. It lacks the technique of boxing, but it also lacks the variety of MMA because you can't use kicks, you can't use elbows, you can't use knees, and you can't really clinch for more than a second without the ref breaking it up. So, and no takedowns, of course. So for me, I don't know if it's the sport for me. If people are enjoying this, that's cool, and I'm glad they are. And I'm glad the fighters are getting paid. From all accounts, they're paying their fighters, but it really wasn't for me. So I'm just being honest here, guys. I wasn't 100% sold on it coming in, and after watching it, I'm like, will I watch the next card? Probably not. I mean, I might check out that main event, but it's not something I'm going to go out of my way to look out for. I did want to see this card, though, to check out what the hype's about. And again, didn't really live up to the hype. Also the co-main event, not a great fight here between Dakota Cochran and Chris Lieben. I don't know why Chris Leeman's still fighting. I'm sorry, but this guy needs to retire. Like he already has for MMA. I don't know why he's still fighting. I mean, he wants the paycheck, I guess, but it's kind of sad to see at this point. Loses to Dakota Cochran. I mean, you wouldn't have thought that would happen a couple years ago, like 5-10 years ago. But Chris Leben, for whatever reason, still fighting. I thought he was just going to do the MMA reffing thing. I thought that was a good second venture in life for him. But he wants to fight. It is what it is. It's just kind of weird how. Remember a few years ago, Bellator signed him, and he wasn't cleared to fight by the doctors because of some head injuries, and now he fights in bare knuckle fighting. Very, very strange. But for Dakota Cochran, it's probably the biggest win of his career, although it's not MMA again. Johnny Bedford, that fight was pretty good against Reginald Barnett Jr. Wins their 135-pound championship. There was like some tournament going on. Bedford wins. Former UFC fighter, of course, Johnny Bedford. He looked pretty good in this fight. I think if anyone on this card is cut out for this bare knuckle thing, it's probably Johnny Bedford. He looks like he is really enjoying what he's doing in there. So good for him. He wins the title there. Julian Lane, former UFC fighter, beats Tom Showoff. Don't know those guys too well. I don't know Showoff too well. Lane, of course, from Ultimate Fighter. Let's Bang Bro. That's the guy. So good for him. Here's a guy who's cut out for a bare knuckle fight. Joey Beltran. He picks up a knockout win over Jamie Campbell. So good for Joey Beltran. I always liked this guy in the UFC, but he wasn't good enough for the UFC. But he seems to be good enough for this bare knuckle thing. So good for him. What else? Joe Riggs and Wilber Brito DeBreus fight to a draw. Again, Joe Riggs still fighting. It's kind of crazy, right? He's been fighting for like 20-something years. Jim Ehlers probably had the best knockout of the night over Alvin Leon Brito. Huge knockout here for Jim Ehlers, former UFC fighter again. And then rounding out the other prelims, David Mundell beats Drew Lipton by knockout. And then Abdiel Velasquez beats Travis Thompson by decision. And Chris Boffel beats Jared Hayes by knockout. So I don't know, like the Jim Ehlers knockout definitely got some play, so good for him because he's a guy who kind of got screwed by the UFC. Didn't really get a chance to fight, I don't think, enough. Should have got another fight, but overall, I don't know. I'm not too sold on it. I know there was a lot of people again in the MMA community that did enjoy it, and I know there was a lot of people that didn't enjoy it. I don't know. For me, it's not my thing. Again, I might check out that Garcia versus Jason Knight fight, but overall, not really my cup of tea. But it's always good that these fighters are getting another outlet to make some cash. So good for them at least. And there does seem to be an appetite for this, but the fact that the card had to be moved does concern me a little bit. Like there's going to be a lot of athletic commissions turning this down, and to me it seems kind of gimmicky. But I don't want to keep criticizing these guys. They're doing their thing, but it's just I don't know. I don't see it lasting that long. I think it's kind of a gimmick. We'll see what happens though. Anyways, guys, I think that's all I want to talk about today. I mean, again, I covered 3 cards there, so a lot to recap. But I'll be back tomorrow morning, of course, as always, talking about the world of MMA. I'm sure there's going to be some news coming out today. I know Ariel's got a show, so we'll have some fighters on there, and then probably there'll be some fight announcements to talk about. So I'll be back tomorrow morning. But for now, I definitely want to recap those cards, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, follow me on Twitter at MMAdammartin. That's where I'm always talking about MMA. So check me out there. MMAOddsbreaker.com. That's where this podcast is hosted. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I appreciate that, guys. What else? Okay, so for this week on MMAOddsbreaker.com, tomorrow we have the Contender Series. So I'll have the opening odds reactions tonight, hopefully if the odds come out soon. Also, I'll have the opening odds for UFC on ESPN3. I'll probably be previewing that card Wednesday, I think, with Cole. So check that out. That's the Nagano JDS card. That'll be on MMAOddsbreaker.com. Sherdog.com. I have my insane prop bets and beating the books articles coming out today and tomorrow, so check that out as well. MMAnews.com. I just had an article on Paulie Malignaggi versus Artem Lobov and why MMA fans were left disappointed by the fight. Check that out as well. BJPen.com. I'll have some news articles this week. And MMARings.net. I had an article on Korean Zombie and why he's the perfect main event for UFC fighting events. So thank you guys for tuning in. I love doing the show, so appreciate you guys tuning in. And I'll be back tomorrow breaking down the latest in the world of MMA. Have a good day, guys, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning.